Welcome to Fort Fritz, your one-stop for news, current events, and all forms of entertainment relating to the paranormal, the supernatural, the Fortean, and things that go bump in the night, all packaged and presented in the form of know-nothing know-it-alls. Hello, my name is Fritz, and for the next hour, I will be with you because the rest of the crew have decided it's just not safe enough yet to get back together. Man, Daddy, Angela, and Kaz have basically said this pandemic is a little too hot right now for us, especially here in Florida. We just surpassed the most deaths we've had as a state collectively for 2 days in a row. I totally agree. But a lot has been happening in the paranormal world, so here I am to try to give you a little crash course on it. Up first, a July 23rd New York Times article entitled "No Longer in Shadows, Pentagon's UFO Unit Will Make Some Findings Public." This was written by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean, has really been taking the world by storm. In it, the two writers for the New York Times detail a once classified program. The Pentagon decided to let the $22 million budget on it lapse. That was the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. That was really the first time we heard a government agency come out and confirm that they had a covert department dedicated solely to the idea of unidentified flying objects over American airspaces, dedicated to researching, classifying, categorizing, really, the UFO, which is unidentified flying object, or UAP, which is unidentified aerial phenomenon, and the growing movement behind them. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, it's important to note what it is and what it is not. So let's start with what it is first. Based on national security, to identify and research any threat over airspaces, if it were a Russian or a Japanese or of a previously unknown origin, the AATIP would collect all of the data and would analyze it so that the government officials would know exactly what they were dealing with. Obviously, when you're putting a $22 million Raptor in the skies with a two personnel crew, you don't want to risk their lives. So the AATIP was very pivotal in trying to find out as much information as possible to protect American lives. What it wasn't expressly set up solely to dedicate time and millions of dollars to investigate UFOs or little green men or aliens, whatever you want to call it. It was not a fringe paranormal or supernatural entity. It was to collect hard evidence and then filter that through various lenses to sift out all of the detritus to find out exactly what it was, what these aircrafts were. This is where it gets interesting. This new article, again published by the New York Times, has come out to say that not only is this program still active, but it's been rebranded as the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, and it now resides in the Office of Naval Intelligence. So this Pentagon, once disbanded secret program, is now relegated to the Office of Naval Intelligence. They are not dealing with classified information, but it does deal with classified subjects. And this was mentioned in a June Senate committee report. And of course, Florida has its own role in this. Florida Senator Marco Rubio is acting chairman on the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, so he was probably there when all of this was being discussed. So this Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, it's got a brand new fancy name. It's got new colors and bells and whistles. What this is trying to do is basically the exact same thing. It's trying to track down objects entering United States airways and trying to identify what country of origin it comes from, how it was created, reverse engineering it if they can, if they get their hands on it, if they have a physical specimen evidence, and trying to track down if there are other countries that have more advanced propulsion systems than us. And in 2016, the Chilean government released a video taken by two of their fighter pilots off the coast of Chile. It was of a small craft that was tilted on its axis and moving in a behavior that was not explainable to the two pilots. When the Chilean government released it to the world, I thought it was brave, and I commended them because what other world government would release evidence of an unknown object, asking other world government leaders to explain to them if they were in their airspace. I mean, that doesn't happen. You've never seen that happen before, and Chile did it. They had no shame, and I just thought that was cool. So the UAP task force right now is dedicated to, in the words of Sue Gao, she's a Pentagon spokesperson, creating a task force to gain knowledge, insight into nature and origins of unidentified aerial phenomenon. They're also looking at their operations, capabilities, performance, and or signatures. So if you are listening to this, I believe we are getting closer and closer to a full disclosure on the topic of UFOs, UAPs, and existential threats, I guess, from whatever these things, these objects are. Popular Mechanics tried to break this down and noted that the astrophysicist Eric W. Davis revealed, quote, off-road vehicles not made on this earth, unquote, were actual materials on hand that have been collected in this report. So if they do have some kind of evidence of an extraterrestrial vehicle, a dune buggy, a cosmic dune buggy, if you will, what other proof do you need that we're not alone in the cosmos? And furthermore, how exactly close are we sitting to the precipice of destruction? If anything out there in the cosmos has a chip on their shoulder. Now, of course, there are a lot of writers who do not believe implicitly that any of this stuff is actually going on. A couple have accused Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Kean of being no more than cheerleaders for To the Stars, the Academy of Arts and Sciences, which Tom DeLonge, ex-Blink-182 member, is affiliated with. And some are even downright criticizing Luis Elizondo. He was the Pentagon program's previous director for AATIP. He resigned in October 2017 after 10 years with the program, but he confirmed that the new task force evolved from the Advanced Aerospace Program. They are also claiming that he has a hand in the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, so he might be biased. Having said that, there are still hundreds of reports, though, of UAP throughout the past several decades. So there is something there, not only existing in the atmosphere of To the Stars Academy. So we will keep you updated if any new information comes out about that. But I would like to switch gears a little bit and tell you about a man who is trying to go back in time to warn humanity about tragedies. This is from Mic.com, M-I-C.com. The article, Meet the Man Trying to Send a Warning About History's Worst Tragedies Back to 1935. This man, Joe Davis, he thinks of himself as a humanitarian at heart, and he's trying to send a message into space. The message is not intended for potential intelligent alien listeners, though, because he's already sent a couple of those signals into the void, and he hasn't heard anything back. He hopes that this communique will reach humans on Earth, and ideally around the year 1935 or so. So he calls this Swan Song, all one word, not Ron Swan Song, just Swan Song. And really, it's a Morse code transmission listing, numerous pandemics, genocides, natural disasters, tragedies, and all the other things that humans in their myopic vision have just failed to prevent between 1935 and 2011. He hopes to send it all the way to a black hole, the black hole Cygnus X1. That's over 6,000 light years from Earth, so it's just right around the corner. And he wants to slingshot the signal off of its time-distorting edge into the past and back towards us. So he wants to think of himself sending a letter into the distortion of gravity and time. Hopefully, it can go back and benefit us in the future, which is now the present, to say. So he's not a trained scientist. He wants everyone to know that. But he did earn a BA in creative arts in 1973, and since then he's been struggling to make ends meet. He does, though, think that he is very, very capable in the intellectual realm, and he's been trying to get this idea off of the ground. I think if it works, we would definitely benefit from everything. So why not? So, some of his work is meant to stimulate creativity in scientists. That's the whole name of the game. There is a reason why science fiction exists, because it is fiction. Once it is proven correct, it is nonfiction. If he can distort time, let's say he does succeed and he sends a Morse code message back into the past. The idea that, number one, anyone would listen is far-fetched. But if they do, you know what? We might be able to save millions of lives. We get to go back and do all of this over again. No more World War II. The Nazi Party rose to power in 1933, but in 1935, maybe they can shut it down. Maybe he's got enough facts to get that out of here. Let's hope he has all of his facts straight, and let's hope people don't simply read the Morse code transmissions and say, fake news. Speaking of fake news, coming up, we have a very cool video I would like to play for you, all about a Richard Nixon speech he didn't have to deliver, thank God, but because of modern technology, and why not, we can see and hear him making and delivering that speech now. We'll be right back with more Fort Fritz right here on Real Radio 104.1.
Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Welcome back to Fort Fritz right here on Real Radio 104.1. I am Fritz, and I would like to draw back the curtain for you a little bit and tell you an anecdote about young Fritz back when I was 8 years old. I've always been fascinated by space and the planets, and my mother came into my room one time when I was writing down all of the planets' symbols. They each have their own symbol. For instance, Jupiter's looks like a 2 with almost like a 2 going into an upside down cross looking thing. So a fancy stylized 4 with a bunny ear. And I, for whatever reason, was writing down how far away the planets were to the sun. So, 1.898 times 10 to the 29th, whatever. And my mom said, "Why are you doing that?" I looked her right in the eye and I said, "Because it's the planets." It's always been, it's a stupid answer, but it's always been something that has been tangible. The first time you see Saturn with a telescope, it's awe-inspiring. You get struck down. You feel the gravity, the enormity of that situation. And especially July 20th, 1969, when the Apollo 11 mission put human beings, Americans, on the moon for the first time. The government-funded program, NASA, not the AATIP or the UAP task force, but NASA, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, when they put 2 individuals on the moon, 2 Americans, in the name of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Of course, Michael Collins was the astronaut who flew the Apollo 11 command module, Columbia, around the lunar surface, while Armstrong and Aldrin could do what they had to do and get their mission completed. But a lot of people don't know that President Richard Nixon had a speech prepared for him in case anything disastrous happened to the crew of Apollo 11. Of course, it was the first time anyone landed on the moon and walked around in their spacesuits. It was, as Armstrong said, a small step for man, a giant leap for mankind. In the event anything happened that was negative and not the outcome expected, Richard Nixon had a speech prepared that fortunately he did not have to give, he did not have to deliver to the American people and the world all over. But fortunately for us, MIT in the year 2020 has decided to produce a deep fake video of Richard Nixon delivering that very speech. And it's 6 minutes long. I'm not playing the entire video. It's very well done. But this is just the actual speech that Richard Nixon would have delivered if a disaster, if an explosion or anything else happened to Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong, and Buzz Aldrin. And I will play the audio for you now. If you would like to watch the video, just go to realradio.fm and click shows and blogs right there under Fort Fritz. You'll be able to watch it. This is the speech entitled "In Event of Moon Disaster."
Good evening, my fellow Americans. Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. These brave men, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin, know that there is no hope for their recovery. But they also know that there is hope for mankind in their sacrifice. These two men are laying down their lives in mankind's most noble goal, to search for truth and understanding. They will be mourned by their families and friends. They will be mourned by their nation. They will be mourned by the people of the world. They will be mourned by a Mother Earth that dared send two of her sons into the unknown.
This is the MIT deepfake Richard Nixon video.
In their exploration, they stirred the people of the world to feel as one.
In event of moon disaster.
In their sacrifice, they bind more tightly the brotherhood of man. In ancient days, men looked at stars and saw their heroes in the constellations. In modern times, we do much the same, but our heroes are epic men of flesh and blood. Others will follow and surely find their way home. Man's search will not be denied. But these men were the first, and they will remain the foremost in our hearts. For every human being who looks up at the moon in the nights to come will know that there is some corner of another world that is forever mankind. Good night.
Pretty powerful stuff. That opening line, fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. It is a beautifully written speech. Again, I'm glad he didn't have to read this on air. That would have been very traumatizing to everyone watching it as a kid and in high school at the time. But that last part there, for every human being who looks up at the moon in the nights to come will know that there is some corner of another world that is forever mankind. Amazing. Again, this was a real speech. Richard Nixon had this on his desk. He didn't have to read it because Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were able to get back into Columbia, and Michael Collins was able to pilot them back home. But still, that is incredible, and it's such a beautifully well-written speech. And I'm glad that MIT put that together. Very, very well done video. Again, if you missed it, you can just go to realradio.fm, click on Fort Fritz there under shows and blogs. You'll be able to watch the entire thing. Have you ever wanted to own a very haunted mansion where supposedly the devil visited? Well, good news for you, you psycho. That very house is now for sale in Ireland, so you'll have to move. If you have a passport, that's even better, but for just over $2.85 million, that's American, you can own Loftus Hall, Loftus Hall. It's also known as the Hall of Dreams. Here's a little bit of the backstory on Loftus Hall. It was originally built back in the 1100s, that's 1100, as one of the first castles in Ireland, but the hall, thankfully, today is heavily renovated. That was done in the late 19th century and given its current name from Hall of Dreams to Loftus Hall. It contains 22 bedrooms, so if you have a big family, that's even better. And it's got 63 acres of land attached to it. So that is a bargain, $2.8 million for 63 acres of land and a 22-bedroom mansion. It's beautiful, but it's got a pretty interesting history because the devil stayed at Loftus Hall, or so the story goes. So here is how the story goes. At the time, Anne Tottenham was living at the mansion. A strong storm happened to blow this young man onto the coast. His ship was grounded. He walked up to Loftus Hall and he asked for shelter. And he ended up actually staying with Anne's family for several weeks. And the really bonkers banana part of this story, Anne was playing cards and she dropped one. She looked down and the dude had cloven feet. Immediately, she screams in total disbelief. That's when he says, "Ah, I'm the devil!" Doop-de-doo, doop-de-doo, and then he, turns into a ball of flame. and he shot straight up through the roof of the house, exploding all of those wood planks. In the truly horrifying part of this story, Anne was in absolute disbelief after that and was severely traumatized at what just happened to her and what she experienced. Her mental state worsened with the trauma. Then her family ended up confining her not to a mental asylum, but to the tapestry room inside of the castle until she passed away around the year 1775. The tapestry room. Doesn't that just sound demonic? Doesn't that just sound evil? The tapestry room. And number one, if you have a 22-bedroom mansion and you have a tapestry room, what other rooms do you have? Do you have like a jousting room or like an arts and crafts fun center, a senior citizen rec room? What else do you have? That's just rude, locking someone in a tapestry room. What else are you going to do but make blankets? But after Anne's death, Loftus Hall was rumored to have extreme poltergeist activity. Poltergeist means loud, very loud, noisy, sometimes violent, but a physically loud, aggressive energy. So this poltergeist activity is rampant all in Loftus Hall, and the family decided to bring in a priest named Thomas Broaders. He tried to rid the house of evil spirits, and he actually was able to perform an exorcism in every area of the house except for, you got it, the tapestry room. But wait, it gets worse. So when they were doing the renovations on Loftus Hall in the 1870s, late 19th century, they found the skeletal remains of a baby inside the room in which Anne was confined to. So again, people can speculate. Of course, she gave birth to the devil's child, and wanted to store the baby away. Did she murder it? Was it stillborn? Did she have secret encounters with another dashing stranger who wanted to marry her but was not quite the devil, so her father turned him away? There's just anyone can make up their own story for this, and people have, but this is the final twist to the story. Anne Tottenham is buried in a Wexford cemetery, but her grave was completely cemented over so that nobody could dig her body up or investigate the secrets that lie deep underground with her. As far as the paranormal activity, several people have claimed to have seen Anne's ghost wandering around the house at night, and it's believed that that dashing ne'er-do-well, the devil himself, also haunts the property, with the proof being in a mysterious mark left on the roof from when he supposedly flew right through it. So visitors to the mansion try to capture apparitions and photographs, and they try to they try to document to the best of their ability if Loftus Hall is haunted. There are some photos, though, that you can see two female figures in ghost form, and people online posit, speculate, conjecture that it's Anne and her mother. So, having said all of that, you can totally buy Loftus Hall for a little under $3 million, 22 bedrooms. It's a heck of a deal. Totally haunted, but think of it as buy it, and then you got 22 little Airbnbs, 22 individual rooms. You don't have to tell people it's haunted. They're totally not going to look up Loftus Hall. Just rename it something. And if you want the paranormal tourism that comes with Loftus Hall, put a little plaque, on this site in the 18th century. The devil himself stood here and blew his top through the roof. Just think about it. That's all I'm saying. I want you to buy this house, if that means anything. We're going to take a little break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Welcome back to Fort Fritz. Fritz here with you. If you could, go ahead and do us a favor. Give us a like and a follow on Facebook at Fort Fritz. Also on Instagram at Fort Fritz, and on Twitter at Fort Fritz MCT. We would really appreciate it. All of them are at Fort Fritz, but Twitter is a little weird. It's at Fort Fritz MCT. I believe, don't quote me on that, Or how about this? Would you like to give us a voicemail about a scary incident that you have experienced? Go ahead and do that. 570-478-3789. That's 570-4RT-FRTZ. We're going to be getting into unexplained vanishing stories in this segment. These include everyone from hikers, campers, people out picking berries with their families, and then hearing strange noises, sometimes voices compelling them to stray from the beaten path, and then finding themselves in very dangerous and precarious predicaments. So, without further ado, this is from mysteriousuniverse.org. The title of this story, Mysterious Trails, Strange Calls from the Wilds, and the Almost Vanished. This first story was first posted on Reddit, who goes by the name Malamute Owner 77. So I'm assuming this person owns a Malamute. And I'm right. The Malamute's name is Sky. This person says her godfather has a cabin that sits nestled within a tract of wooded land called the New Forest in Bournemouth on the south coast of England. She went there, decided to take a couple of days for herself and also her Malamute Sky, and found herself around 11 a.m. walking towards a field with wild horses. This is when she began having very strange experiences. She first hears something calling to her from the surrounding trees, and this is in her own words. So I'm taking photos of wild horses, and I hear, "Hey, come here," seemingly to come to the right of me. I look, and that part of the forest is deeper, and I couldn't see anything standing or hiding that way. Sky, on the other hand, heard it and jerked that way on the lead. "Come closer, this way." I focused myself now to look through the trees and long grass, and there was now a simple stone path that weirdly didn't have any grass or growth around it. You could clearly see a cobbled path. So, okay, that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't say spooky or supernatural as of yet, but maybe it gets better. So, Sky and I started making our way down that path. I didn't notice at the time, but I could clearly hear Sky whimpering and nothing else. It was like all other sound was muted, ? That's her writing the question mark. She's even confused by this. I know I'm not making any sense typing this out, and I'm sorry. It was like everything else around me, the birds, the wind, and trees, were just fading away, and I was in some weird sort of haze. Just a bit further, a woman's voice, seemingly to come out of nowhere, whispered to us while giggling. Sky shook me out of my trance by stopping, putting her hackles up, and growling at something. I shook my head, and suddenly the confusion had disappeared. We were still on the path, but I had a very weird sense of dread starting to creep over me. That, and with Sky growling, just made me think, nope. Then we ran back to the clearing we came from. All right, I'm going to pause right here. There is one feeling that people always mention when they are in a very, very negative mind space, and it deals with the paranormal aspect of UFOs and extraterrestrials or aliens. The fact that a big brother entity could be looking at them, and that emotion, that word, that is always brought up is dread, a feeling of dread. There's no other word. I find that really curious. So she is also mentioning the word dread. So that checks out. "Come back," a woman screamed at us, and it seemed to follow an echo around us as we both were running back. We made it to the clearing and back to the cabin, so she's hauling ass right now. I double-locked all the doors and pulled the curtains and blinds over the windows due to the fact that I thought we were being followed, and whatever or whoever wanted us down that path so badly would come back for us. They never did. I checked my phone straight away as I now had service and was connected to the Wi-Fi. Multiple calls, texts, and WhatsApps, WhatsApps all came through at once. Tons. Asking where we were, did we arrive safe? My boyfriend asking why hasn't he heard from me? We were in the woods for what seemed like an hour and mere seconds on that path. It was now 9 p.m., and I have no recollection of the missing time we had encountered. So another thing that happens in this story is missing time, another key component from UFO stories or UFO experiences. Now, not saying it was a UFO, but I find that very intriguing. What the voice was, we really don't know. But those two aspects to me scream of a UFO anomaly that is stretching time or maybe gravity. But who knows? I mean, all of this is hogwash if you don't believe it, right? We have another report from a Reddit user, Lewis Analog, who had his own experience while out hiking in the Grand Tetons National Park in northwestern Wyoming. And let me just say this about Wyoming. I think that state has the most impossible to pronounce names of any other state, like Grovant and Vitavu, Grand Tetons. You don't know how to pronounce it until you got to look it up. Anyway, he was out with friends in 2017 doing a road trip, and they stopped at the Grand Tetons to stay for a couple of days. While they were there, they made plans to hike along some of the less traveled trails of the area. They tried to do a 13-mile hike called the Two Oceans and Emma Matilda Lakes Outside Loop, whatever the heck that is. So it was a clear morning on a clear day, and then as they were looking out, something very weird happened. The weather suddenly became dark and ominous, and then the weather passed just as suddenly. So it was a clear sky, weather became very violent and cloudy, and then it was over again. So they didn't think much about that, oddly enough. And then this is where things get strange, they said. The following is from the witness. After a few more miles, the trail became extremely narrow, approximately one person wide, and the forest on either side became thick, like the thickest forest you've ever seen. I remember remarking it looked like Blair Witch Country, and the forest almost seemed to consume the trail. It's at this point walking along the trail that myself and one friend who was in the front of the pack distinctly heard a clear, loud, and audible woman's voice. So this kind of sounds like the first story that we heard, again, a woman's voice. He continues, it sounded as if a woman was maybe 15 meters ahead of us around the bend and speaking to someone. We continued walking, and when we got around the bend, we're stunned to see nothing. So this must have been a very, very loud voice. The hairs on the back of my neck immediately stood up, and we looked at each other in shock and reiterated we definitely heard a woman. The other three guys then approached and asked us if we were okay, as we were pale, and we told them what we had heard. They then told us they too had heard a woman as they approached, and they thought the two of us who were ahead had been talking to a fellow hiker. We all looked around frantically, but the forest had turned silent. Again, another thing that the first story also corroborates. It was deathly silent. There was no wind, and everything seemed to be going slowly. The weird thing was there was one very tall tree about 50 meters from us, which was swaying from side to side. But as I said, there was no wind, and the forest was silent. It wasn't just moving slightly, but as if it was caught in a large gust. The clouds had blown back over and were an ominous gray, so the weather gets worse again. We all kind of looked at each other, and after calling out a few times to make sure there wasn't an injured hiker around, we began hiking relatively fast away from the spot. I would too. And over the next 8-ish miles, saw one other person near the trailhead and a bear, but that was the only part of the trail where we all felt uncomfortable. So they then talk about it later that night. They all got goosebumps, and they still don't know exactly what they heard. Now, there are a lot of similarities to the first story and that story, in that time seemed to stand still. They heard a woman's voice, but they also had witnesses to corroborate in this story, and that kind of sets it apart. Lewis Analog, the Reddit user, went on to say that they thought maybe they would have come close to vanishing, like many others in national parks, and wonders if there was a cluster of such disappearances in the area at the time. If you are new to the world of the paranormal or supernatural, you might not know that there are over 1,400 disappearances in U.S. national parks in the past 100 years, and a lot of them deal with children. Let's go back to one of the first known missing cases, and this goes back to August of 1897. A 6.5-year-old girl, 6 years and 6 months. Her name was Lillian Carney. She went missing in the U.S. state of Maine, near the Aroostook River in Masardis, Maine. She went out picking berries with her family, picking blueberries, and according to her parents, she vanished right under their noses. So this was on a Sunday. By Monday, they had over 200 searchers scouring the area, all to no avail. And then by the next day, they had over 500 people looking for her. They couldn't find her. On the third day, Lillian Carney was found just 2 miles away from where she went missing, and she had a dazed look on her face. She also said that despite her being missing for 46 hours in overcast weather, the sun shone the entire time. She said there was continuous sunlight. She also said that she heard the voices of people around her but could not see anyone. She thought they were tramps, so she didn't make a sound. She follows that line up by saying that there were small creatures all around her. The newspaper on record of the 1897 report speculates that it could be bunnies or small woodland creatures. But what is odd about this whole entire story is that Lillian was found completely fine. In her hand were a few blueberries, but she said she shouldn't eat these blueberries in case they might make her sick. So there is some speculation that maybe she ate the wrong berry, but if she was out with her parents, she would probably know which blueberry bush to pick from, I would imagine. But 46 hours of constant sunlight is the line that really stumps a lot of people on that one. There are a lot of stories about people who have gone missing in national parks. Like I've said, maybe in a subsequent episode we can get more involved in those. But we're going to take a little break and be right back with something fun, I promise, on Fort Fritz. You are listening to Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Fort Fritz on Real Radio 104.1.
Welcome back to Fort Fritz. On behalf of myself, Man Daddy, Angela, and Kaz, thank you so much for listening. It's not easy doing this without them, definitely, because, you just feel like you're screaming into the void, as Man Daddy would say. But thankfully, we're going to end with some screaming into the void. Here's some outtakes from Fort Fritz.
It's controlled. It's on its job. It's not going to just gallop away.
I think it's like
his man is there.
Cantor, and Gallop. I think
How mad would you be if you're
What's
the guy?
What's the fancy horse thing? Where they fancy horse?
Dressage.
Oh, thank you.
Dressage.
Oh, I didn't even know
nice.
that. Man,
Nicely
Daddy,
done.
that is
Points.
delicious.
That is points.
I am from
Dressage.
Longwood.
I always wondered, did they find a fancy horse and the guy was like, I want to have that horse that does that fancy stuff, or did they train the horse to be fancy? And then who decided there would be competitions
Some
in
horses are
fancy
just
horsing?
born with the fancy. I
Okay,
think.
so
You
they
really
were-
thought about this, evidently.
I've watched it and I'm just like, how did this come to be? Like, how did two people get together and be like, my horse is fancier than yours, dog. Check this out. And they're doing their little feet thing.
You think your horse is fancy? Look
Watch
how
this one.
fancy this is.
My horse can walk sideways. Watch this.
How'd you get your horse to... Never mind!
That's for you to figure out, buddy.
Immediately butt hurt. So, this creature...
Why is there a smiley face with
It just sounds fun. Back bums.
It was B and then apostrophe made the smiley face with the I don't know if you guys are looking on Facebook.
Oh, okay. I see what you're looking at.
The smiley face with the sunglasses.
I didn't.
Before he burns his stupid ass arm off, and cool guy smiley face before these bat bombs swoop down on us and engulf us in the silliest.
Oh my God!
That's exactly what
Is
it
that
says.
what? Is that how you do smiley face with the? It's just
It's
a B with a.
so yeah, I
B
did
with
A apostrophe and then I did B apostrophe, and B apostrophe is apparently
It's not
cool.
showing up like that for me on
I got
Facebook.
cool guy. I got cool guy.
Oh my-
I got my messaging on my text.
That is the
Funny.
best. This is the best outtake ever.
That's ridiculous.
Bat bombs.
Okay.
Okay, so bat bombs swoop down and they golf us.
Horrible. And as this is the first story we've done in Fort Fritz where I didn't write a story. And I couldn't. And as I was getting into this, all I could think to myself is, what the did I do to piss off Kaz? Because Kaz knows how I feel, and he's like, this is going to up Man
You know
Daddy's
what?
day.
I kind of felt that way about the bat bomb.
Oh, on the bat bombs. I'll take bat bombs all day over the Russian zombie dogs.
I had a quick moment where I was like, all right, cool.
I literally read one sentence of
I was
both
like-
of these stories, and it was just like, yep, that'll work. I had no idea. That's why it was so cool listening to it. I was like, I had no idea what
I didn't
what they
want
actually
to
did.
talk to you for like days. I was like, well, all right.
You will hug a bat bomb and take it out to dinner before a Russian zombie dog. Okay.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Are people still doing that? Are kids still doing that? I hope so.
I did.
No, they look it up online. And
Anything Feruza
figure it
Balk
out.
tells
No.
me to do, I do. All right, that's straight up.
For sure.
Right?
My
She's-
favorite
Yes.
Feruza. Of
Yeah.
all the
God.
Feruzas, she
Balk.
is my favorite Feruzas.
Oh.
I never balk at that one.
Not my favorite
God,
ball.
no. Who would balk at Feruza?
Gee, that was painful.
You know what?
Man.
Yeah, I think they're going to eat him if he doesn't live.
Is that how they keep the nurse baby so like?
Yeah, I
fit
guess so. Yeah, I
and
guess
smart?
if you eat people, you just stay the same age.
Nurse baby.
Nurse baby. Nurse
He had some
baby.
like pretty strong calves.
Disproportionately big.
Yeah, it was really kind of freaky. It was like upside down Popeye.
They had 1-800-COLLECT or faxes.
Huh?
And I think that was it.
And Blockbuster.
And Block, of course.
Lots of
I'm sorry.
blockbusters,
Oh, Blockbuster was awesome, man. I miss Blockbuster.
except for their damn late fees. It
Call-
destroyed families.
Are you Fritz's friends? I'm Dr. Deathsman.
That's fantastic.
That was my
I love
Iggy
that.
Pop. Well, you see, growing up in Ann Arbor, I remember Scott Ashton went
That's
over there,
crazy
and,
how much it's like Holly Hunt.
Damn.
that's my Iggy Pop.
No, it's your Helen
It's right. It's the Holly
That's
Hunt.
really good.
That's what I've been working on as my Dr. Deathsman. Fred?
But undertakers and morticians are always eating a sandwich. We've
They
talked
are.
about this before. At all times, in every movie, whenever there's a
It's the
mortician, always
perfect thing to eat because it's like all in one handful of things you can eat.
You can
know,
just use you can have an eating hand.
One
Sarah Bick
hand,
told us about
Sarah?
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have one hand to eat and one hand for dead.
and you
It's
don't
fine.
want to mix those hands up.
No.
You
No,
don't want to mix
hell
those
no.
hands up,
No,
man.
no, no.
You don't never put down the sandwich.
Sarah-
Never put it down.
Sarah even said, she's like, I don't know what. It's in one hand. Kaz nailed it. If I want to put it down, I'm not hungry anymore.
She wasn't lying. It's a thing.
Yeah.
It is a
Apparently, it's a thing. So this Undertaker eating his sandwich. He's like,
Like a Philly cheese.
yeah, he's like,
It'd be like
"Oh,
a
man,
Donnybrook cheese.
this roast beef sandwich is delicious.
Cursing,
Strangely enough, all these Dr. Shipman bodies are kind of found the same way.
cursing Harry Fred Shipman.
This roast beef gets in your teeth.
Nemesis.
What did he do?
Well, you've never heard of Rasputin, the Mad Monk? Because I was way into him when I heard I had to do this story at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
You heard that?
I know, I had the grid. It's my fault. I had
It
the
wasn't
grid.
even on the grid. I texted you personally and told you.
Oh.
Wait.
Would you like to go over the timeline for this?
He
I
even,
wanna see.
he even
On
forwarded it-
record?
He even forwarded this text to Angela and myself.
Would you? No.
Where is it?
He sent you a private text, and then he told us privately that he sent you something privately.
Saturday, 8:55 p.m. Your story for Tuesday is Ellipse: The Trials and Tribulations of Brendan Fraser, or Grigory Rasputin, whichever you think will fit the theme of the show more. Ha 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 ha.
Sounds like me.
I'm forever just hearing ha
But I'm-
ha ha ha. Whenever
That's what I hear when you guys type that out. First of all,
ha ha ha.
That's so funny. It's totally disappeared from my timeline.
Because
How convenient.
I always see it and I go,
I know. I'm usually laughing like a madman when I write that out.
ha 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 ha.
I am too. So that's
Yeah.
good to know.
Or
That
we-
we're all
It's
on the same-
real.
That's actually really adorable that we all like admit that. It's
Dude,
like, oh,
I'm looking at the timeline. I just saw Jeff's going ha 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 ha. There's Angela ha ha ha.
This is me and you.
Jeff again. Wah, ha, 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 ha. It's constantly
and then
slapping
man
each
dad is
other.
ha.
Yeah, it's just an HAH. Or the he is the worst. The HEH is like, yeah, it's just like you like f off.
That's
Yeah.
so
Well, that's
funny.
Don't even answer.
Don't hand me.
Yeah, don't even say anything.
And HEH, I've never done an HEH, but to me that's a. Like, it's like a-
Right, that's like a f off.
No, I want
Yeah, I don't.
guffaws or nothing.
Yeah, just give me an all caps LOL. Don't
Did get a harump out of that
don't
guy.
lower cap it.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway, Rasputin.
Motherfucker.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that keyword is coming up. Text it in. You could win $1,000. Answer your phone, though. Have a good one. Be safe and stay spooky.
Until next time, pleasant dreams.